Good morning, everyone.
Good
There's
morning.
still room next to the bar, guys. So just walk on and clear the hallways. There's some seats.
You can sit. You can lie down on the stage as well. If you
There's a
want.
seat on the stage.
Yeah, plenty of space here.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, welcome everyone. It's pretty packed, so thanks for joining, even when it's one of the first presentations here.
Close to lunch.
Sorry?
Close to lunch.
Yeah, exactly. So we were asked to talk here, and we thought, what kind of talk would we like to see when we get to a conference in a certain country? Because we went to Miami, we went to El Salvador, and when you get there, it's fun to talk about Bitcoin because we all share the same mempool, for instance. We share the same Bitcoin improvement protocols, and the protocol we share Bitcoin with each other. So that's fun to talk about, and we're going to do that a lot at this conference as well. But we also thought it's fun to get to know the country a little bit better, and then especially the role that Bitcoin plays in that country. Because that differs quite a bit. In Miami, Bitcoin is treated differently than in El Salvador. And the same goes for the Netherlands, especially because Europe is a different continent than America or Asia or the Middle East. It's divided. We have a lot of different regulators, different lawmakers, different countries, different people, different cultures. So we thought, let's go through Bitcoin in the Netherlands. And so we said, why the Dutch don't care about Bitcoin yet. So we will talk about a lot of different groups, different stakeholders in the Netherlands. So we will talk about different stakeholders, but also about the different functions of Bitcoin. And I think you will recognize the stakeholders, you will also recognize the functions, but maybe you don't know the way that those stakeholders react to Bitcoin in the Netherlands, or that the functions are used. For instance, are the Dutch using Bitcoin for payments? Are the Dutch using Bitcoin for investing? Are they using it as freedom money? We're going to cover all those areas. So let's move on. A quick introduction about ourselves. So why do we think that we can cover all those topics in around 25 minutes? Yeah, we don't.
Give her 24,
Yeah,
23.
we are trying. I'm Bart Mol. That's Bert Slagter, Peter Slagter. Those two are brothers. I'm not. Maybe.
Wow, a little bit.
Not yet.
Adopted brother, kind of. We have a podcast together, Satoshi Radio. It's one of the biggest Bitcoin podcasts in the Netherlands. We also write. So we have a newsletter called Bitcoin Alpha, which we send out a couple of times a week. We have a community, etc. And also we try to educate in different ways. We have meetups. We have a YouTube channel where we share Lightning Node tutorials, for instance. We've been doing that since, I think, 3 years ago, when Umbrel wasn't even founded yet. And also you guys talk to a lot of the stakeholders that we will mention in this video. Trying to educate them, but maybe educate is a little bit too harsh. It's also just listening to them and trying to answer their questions.
Have a conversation.
Have a conversation, yeah, exactly. So I think, Peter, let's start with one of the... we think it's one of the most important functions of Bitcoin, which
Agreed.
is freedom money.
Agreed. Yeah, so we have pretty strong civil liberties and rights in the Netherlands. For example, Bart, have you ever been refused a personal bank account?
No, not personally, no.
Me neither, no.
Why not?
Yeah, because we have a right to have, in the Netherlands you have a right to have a bank account as a person.
I'm wondering, are there Dutchies in the audience who have been refused a personal bank account? I see one hand, two hands. Oh, you're the exceptions to the rule. Which is great. I want to talk to you guys. I'm interested in why you got refused a personal bank account. It doesn't happen really often.
No.
Next to the strong rights and liberties we have a fairly stable economy. The Dutch in general have a really high trust in our institutions. And as for freedom money, indeed, I think it's the most a valuable property of Bitcoin. It sums up the essence. So it allows you to protect your assets from unreliable third parties. It guarantees your ability to transact anytime, and it offers freedom of digital financial access.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize the Dutch perspective. It's a pretty privileged perspective, I think. That's why I put the cover of this book on the slide. Great book, by the way. You have to read it if you haven't yet. So even though the Dutchies understand the value of freedom money, the urgency to adopt it as such isn't as evident here as elsewhere. So I'm curious, Bart, do you see that change sooner rather than later or not?
I mean, you already mentioned it a little bit, like the Dutch, if you look throughout history, they have high trust in institutions because we have normally trustworthy institutions. But that is changing a little bit, especially if you look at our government. It's the government has fallen. I don't know how you say it in English, but we have to go for a new election before the actual election, normal election date. And there are a lot of things that happened, and where the government's also accountable, that aren't the prettiest, to say the least. So I think people, it is shifting, but still, I don't think that people at this moment, that the Dutch people see Bitcoin as freedom money, and that they actually need that function of Bitcoin. So maybe...
Yeah, in our conversations with institutions, we often have to remind them that we currently don't have a dictator. We are not in a totalitarian regime, but 4 billion people are.
Yeah.
So we're living in a Dutch bubble, and the privilege thing is really a thing here.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other important, I think, functions, and maybe one of the important functions underlying Bitcoin, maybe I have to say that there is mining, of course. Like the whole proof of work is built on miners and mining. So maybe we can dive a little bit into that part of Bitcoin and tell if the Dutch care about Bitcoin mining and why they do or why they don't.
Yeah, when it comes to mining, the Netherlands isn't exactly a global hotspot because we have a densely populated country, limited access to cheap hydroelectric power, for example, a saturated energy grid, high electricity costs. So it didn't gain a lot of traction in the Netherlands. However, the last, I think, one and a half year, there's a growing interest in using Bitcoin mining as a catalyst for our energy transition towards more renewable energy. For example, by reducing gas consumption in greenhouse heating and stabilizing the grid. So this is the chart of the Dutch energy grid and how full it is. The red part there, you can't easily get more power or deliver more power. So we have a problem. Yeah, and exactly. Mining can be part of the solution. So
no, I mean there are actually solar farms that were ready to go that are being passed. The project is being put on hold because the grid can't handle it. So with Bitcoin, you can actually build the solar farm, hook up some miners locally, and when the grid is ready, you turn off your miners and you can actually use the energy on the grid. So there are companies looking into that, which is actually pretty cool.
One of our miners is heating, I think
Bitcoin Brabant, Bert de Groot.
It's in the main hall, I think, right?
It's in the main hall, yeah, you can see it. There's a rack with, I think, 9 or 10 old S9s, and he tweaked them a little bit so they're silent. It's pretty cool. You should take a look. It's on the right warm, in the main hall. If you look at another function, which is saving, a couple of years back, I think I was a guest in a TV show, and I said I use Bitcoin for saving because the inflation is ramping up, and I can't buy a house, and and we had negative interest rates and stuff. Things have changed, Bert. Mm-hmm. So do the Dutch use Bitcoin as a saving technology, or Peter? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we have to be fair. Most Dutchies see saving money as a straightforward, risk-free way to generate returns.
Yeah.
And our banks frame it as such as well. It's like the epitome of financial prudence. And in that context, given that context, Bitcoin as a financial instrument, it does seem to clash with that mindset, right? Because it's just too volatile.
Yeah.
And the learning curve is pretty steep. However, there are Bitcoin and crypto companies in the space, in the Dutch landscape, that offer a range of saving options, dollar cost averaging, tailored saving plans, automated purchases. But still, it's a minority. It's a small group using it.
Yeah, it's actually limited to people that already have Bitcoin. Yeah, already like it.
Yeah.
So no savings, Bart.
And of course, just like in the US, our central bank or the European Central Bank also raised interest rates. So for the first time in 50 years, we actually have a return on our normal saving accounts, which is also something that is it's not helping Bitcoin in the function of a saving method. But we all know you can also use Bitcoin as a payment option. Here on the conference, you can pay with Bitcoin, you can use Lightning, you can pay for your coffee, for your hamburgers, for your whatever. Do we see that in a broader sense being adopted in the Netherlands?
No, actually not. The Netherlands has a problem because we have the best payment infrastructure in the world and a stable currency. And a more or less trustworthy government. So why would people use Bitcoin for payments? At the retail counter, shopping online, transferring money to a friend, we have lots of brilliant options that are quick and cheap and easy to use. So why use Bitcoin? People have alternatives that are better than Bitcoin in the Netherlands. So I think the Dutch people are the last ones that are gonna adopt Bitcoin as a payment system, except for the people
being marginalized.
Who like it as a hobby or as
like
an
us.
experiment. Yeah, like us. Yeah, exactly. For example, this is a chart of the Dutch payment infrastructure. Yeah, there are 1.4 billion. Payment transactions in cash and 5.3 billion with a card, and I think a few thousand with Bitcoin. Yeah. So it's really small.
I mean, also to make it clear, in Europe we have instant payments, instant SEPA payments as they called, which are instant. Like they don't lie. If I transfer to another SEPA account in Europe, it's instant. We have it locally, so if I transfer from bank to bank, it's instant. We have online shopping, we can use credit cards, we can use debit cards, we can use Apple Pay, Google Pay.
PayPal,
everything. So what we're trying to say is really difficult for Bitcoin to rival that infrastructure.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's go to the next one. And I think this is one where we actually have a positive answer, and that's investing, because there are a lot of Dutch people investing in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but as for payments, just one little note, we have a lot of enthusiasts making payments possible. So I think it's fair to say we have more places where you can pay than people that want to pay.
Yeah, we have more places where you can pay with Bitcoin than Bitcoiners that are going there to pay with Bitcoin.
So if you want to spend sats, the Netherlands is a pretty good place to go to. So as for investing, I think that is Bitcoin's main application over here. Yeah. So if you just look at the numbers, in 2020 we had 1 million Dutch citizens invested in Bitcoin. Fast forward to 2022, it was grown to 2 million. Pretty impressive, 10% of our 18 million strong population. And what's driving that surge, for the most, it's just curiosity and the thrill of the gamble. It's speculation. But it's not there are more groups. So there's a large group of speculators, but there's also a fairly large group of strategic investors, and they see Bitcoin as an uncorrelated asset, using it as a hedge, for example, against traditional market volatility. We also have, I think that's a smaller group of long-term believers, like the real Bitcoin believers, in it for the tech, They see transformative potential, and they hold it whatever the market does.
Also ethical perspectives,
Yeah.
and more like a philosophical
It's
background,
probably
yeah.
a couple of you guys fall in that category.
Yeah.
I mean, it's peak bear, and you still showed up.
If you're still here. Yeah.
But still, Bart, speculators are the largest group. Do you think that's problematic?
No, I mean, in the end, you first need to own Bitcoin to spend it or to use it as freedom money or to transact with it or to do one of the other functions that we described. And I think this is the biggest gateway to become a Bitcoiner. So I think most miners, for instance, started by just getting some Bitcoin and then started with mining, or Lightning developers or Bitcoin developers. I mean, they started buying Bitcoin before they started developing on Bitcoin, most of them. So I don't think that's a problem.
It's interesting because in the media, speculation is often framed as being a negative.
I mean,
problem.
sometimes it is difficult for us. I mean, because you always have to first answer the questions, how many Bitcoin do you have, and are you rich, and whatever, and then you can get to the fun stuff. But, I mean, it's better than no conversation starter, in my opinion. So, when we talk about the media, so let's get on to the stakeholders, I think. Here, the media. So, what does the Dutch media say about Bitcoin? Do they say anything at all? Is it even a topic?
Yeah, it has improved big time in the last, I think, 2 years again, since 2021. Most journalists and editorial teams approach Bitcoin with a sense of neutrality and curiosity, so that's good. And it has become increasingly common for media outlets to have one person designated for Bitcoin, to research and to write about it. So that's good. That's someone who knows about all the aspects of Bitcoin, or crypto mostly, of course. Columnists, however, still are very negative, old prejudices and the old stuff, the tulip bubble, and all those things.
Energy consumption.
Reach and impact. I think the biggest Dutch business radio has a weekly program and touches on it a few times a week. When something big happens, like the fall of FTX, it is covered widely by newspapers and the news programs on television. So,
we're happy with the way things are going with the media,
pretty much,
I think. So maybe we can take the next two stakeholders together, because they are often quite mingled in the Netherlands. So we have politics, the people who make the rules, and the regulators who should enforce the rules. But the last couple of years, those two became quite muddied. Regulators making rules, politicians kind of enforcing them in some way. What can we say about those two?
Well, let's start with the politics then. And I think since 2021, there's a growing consensus among politicians that Bitcoin isn't a passing fad. Before that, it was the opposite. It's here to stay. But still, Bitcoin and financial topics in general, they rarely make it to the forefront of our political discourse, really. And I guess it's because it's too intricate, it's too complex to grapple with. And we shouldn't forget that most of our financial regulation doesn't come from The Hague, but from Brussels. Like MiCA, Markets in Crypto Assets, the European regulation. It's mostly a Brussels theme, like outside of the Dutch political arena. But when it does, the conversation is usually framed around sustainability, environmental impact, climate concerns. Some outliers on the political spectrum, on the left and the right, dive into more nuanced discussions, but the mainstream parties tend to avoid it.
Actually, for the coming elections, we went through all the parties, the plans they present. Bitcoin was mentioned not one time for the parties that are in the parliament right now. And cryptocurrency was mentioned 3 times, and all in the context of energy.
So that's a big difference with the United States, where Bitcoin and crypto is part of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So for the regulators, is there anything
Yeah, so
like our Dutch National Bank is the regulator at this point?
Yeah, the Dutch National Bank is the current AML authority, and they are the only regulator at this point. And they are cautious and restrictive. They view Bitcoin as lacking value and utility, focusing only on its side effects. They are in that privileged bubble. They have been applying a stricter regime than what the European rules require. Binance and Coinbase have been fined here. Binance even left the Netherlands and off-boarded closed all accounts.
Forcibly left.
But with the introduction of MiCA, the new European rules, a new regulator will be in charge. That's the AFM, the Markets Authority. And our impression is, so far, that they will have a balanced and fair and open approach to crypto. Strict but fair, so that's a huge improvement. About the DNB, about the Dutch bank, they had a court loss this week.
Yeah, exactly.
They lost in court.
It's just last week, Dutch judge ruled that the supervisory costs charged by the regulator, so charged by the Dutch Central Bank, to the sector were unlawful. And the judge ruled that the supervisor applied the law too broadly. So they were basically just it was just said, you go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. You have to pay back all the
invoices basically.
Yeah.
Which is a big win for the sector.
So we also have the banks. I think we can be a little bit shorter for this one. I mean, they all looked at crypto already in 2015, 2016, kind of called back by the Dutch National Bank, and since then it's more on the background. It's still there, but they don't talk that it's less in the public eye, right? They were making crypto wallets. They were testing crypto wallets in 2016, 2017, and you don't really see those pilots anymore at this point, right? So I think for now we can let this one and move on to the more important sector for Bitcoin, and that's the crypto industry, which is interesting. In the Netherlands, we have 40 companies that subscribe basically to the regulation authority, so to the Dutch National Bank. And I think we have a group of around 10 crypto exchanges, crypto brokers that have been around since 2012, 13. Like, we have a really old crypto sector, which is pretty cool. What we've seen in the last couple of years is that it's been consolidating. So Bitvavo at this point is the biggest, has the biggest market share, and we have a couple, Binance and Coinbase, who basically take a big part of the rest of the pie. Binance left, so there is some movement again. But because the Dutch National Bank had those high regulation costs, there are also a couple of companies that went under because they couldn't pay for the regulation, basically. We're really curious to see how that plays out and if we will see a winner-takes-all kind of market in the Netherlands, or that it stays the broad crypto sector that we saw the last years. So there are also a couple of other industries in the Netherlands. The tech industry, for instance, is pretty interesting because we have two giants in the Fintech industry. We have Adyen, we have Molly, which are next to Stripe, basically, the US payment giant. The three biggest payment processors in the world, if you look at creators and internet websites and that kind of stuff. How do they look at Bitcoin?
The funny thing is that Molly already started accepting Bitcoin payments in 2014. Yeah. They offered Bitcoin payments to all the web shops using their services, and they stopped offering that service in 2019. I think the strict stance of our regulator played the largest role in that decision, and currently almost all fintechs steer clear of crypto. Yeah. It's just not worth the risk.
Exactly.
I think they might come back or are planning to come back when MiCA enters its force.
Yeah, so when the risk lowers, basically.
Yeah.
And hopefully the reward also goes up a little bit, so
Exactly.
that equation becomes a bit more profitable. So I think investors, we talked a little bit about it, but maybe it's fun to shed a little bit of light on the younger generation here.
Yeah. We talked about what drives investors, and I think one element that we see coming back each time is that there's a generational divide. The younger people are used to online and digital, owning digital
Assets,
things. Digital things that have value. For example, I put Minecraft and Fortnite because my children play it, and they own things in these games. And young people understand that something digital can have value, and the older generation has a hard time
grasping that. Yeah.
So we see the younger generation adopting digital assets and Bitcoin as well.
Exactly. So another hot topic, pun intended, is climate issues and stuff. Also in the Netherlands, especially the last couple of months with all kind of protests, it's been a big thing. And I think that's also in Bitcoin. It's what the media mentions, but do those climate groups also have Bitcoin in their crosshairs, or do they focus on other things?
No, so unlike in the US, Greenpeace US, for example, our environmental organizations don't specifically target Bitcoin. At least I haven't seen it happen.
No.
I think the typical Dutch thing is the central bank's employee Alex de Vries, Dutch economist. Yeah, he's been a prominent voice in the debate about Bitcoin's energy use. So he's a familiar name, I think. And even though his views have sparked debate, it's also crucial to recognize that the discourse has evolved. There are much more nuanced sources available right now, and I guess that's good news. It seems like he made a pivot to AI recently.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he said AI will cook the oceans in 4 years.
So the last thing we want to talk about, and because we want to end on a positive note, because maybe you're in the audience and you're like, is there even anything happening around Bitcoin in the Netherlands? Do people, they don't use it for payments, they don't use it for this, the banks are not having it, the tech companies are not having it. I think we have one of the most vibrant Bitcoin communities there is. For instance, the number of Bitcoin and Lightning nodes per capita in the Netherlands is the highest in the world. We are a small country, but yet we have the most Bitcoin nodes up and running at this point, which is pretty cool. We have different podcasts. We have our own podcast, but also the CryptoCast on BNR, which is on national radio. It's been running for 300 episodes and going.
Yeah, tens of thousands of listeners each week.
Exactly. We have all kinds of people making cool projects. We made our own Bitcoin Lightning beer tap. We have tutorials on Lightning. There is our own community. We have meetups. I think I see someone from the Node Runners over there in the orange shirts. They have their own meetups. They are building all kinds of NFC payment cards, mining rigs, and whatever. And the tinkering leads to projects, and projects lead to businesses. So there are actually now also mining businesses, which started as a fun project, who are now actually trying to get to a profitable business model and succeeding in it. So I think that is the main thing that is happening in the Netherlands right now. We are trying to use that privileged position that we have to build stuff that people can use in countries that are less privileged. Exactly. So if you don't have a good payment system, you can use the tools that we built here and make open source, for instance. And I think that is, for me, the reason to keep going on, because for payments at this point, it's not per se needed. So if we go to the closing remarks, when will the Dutch like Bitcoin? I think there are two scenarios, basically, if we boil it down. There is one dystopian, when there is a crisis so big that it crumbles our institutions or our payment networks or other infrastructure, that Bitcoin becomes better than that infrastructure, people will start to use it. Like if bank accounts get closed on a regular basis, for unknown reasons, people will start using Bitcoin. As simple as that. We see that in other countries. The utopian way of looking at it.
First, a small remark about the dystopian one, but because everything seems fine in the Netherlands, but it always seems fine the minute before it gets worse. And
exactly.
I have airbags in my car, and I hope I don't need them, but I'm very happy that they're in my car. So I think we should be happy that there is Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that's why we are still working on it at this point. But there's also a utopian version, and I like that one better, is that we keep working on it, we keep tinkering, and not only in the Netherlands, but worldwide, and hopefully someone, somewhere, will think of something that makes Bitcoin so fantastic, better than it already is, that it exceeds the systems and infrastructure and that we already have. For instance, I mean, we also, I think, the BitVM proposal this week, I mean, there are all talks about it here as well. Yeah, can be something that propels Bitcoin into new territory, and that it makes it so much better than the payment service that we already have, that people actually start using Lightning and Bitcoin because it's cheaper, faster, better than money.
I talk to banks and to politicians and to regulators all the time, and what really resonates with them is the vision that Bitcoin, crypto, becomes this independent, neutral, global infrastructure on which all kinds of services are built that people use because they are better than the alternatives. Yeah. And that's a function of Bitcoin that we didn't mention because we look at it for payments directly, for a person to use it for payments. But what probably will happen is there will be other services that are used for payments or saving or whatever that use Bitcoin as an infrastructure underneath, and that will work in the Netherlands.
Yeah. So if you want to follow us, you can scan the QR code and try our newsletter. It's in Dutch, by the way, I have to say. But you can also come by. We have our own stand, our own podcast stand in the bar area. I would say take a look, say hi, and we can have discussions about all the things that we mentioned. We are happy to elaborate. I think every topic we can spend an hour talking or more.
Especially the guys
with the
who
bank
got
account.
their bank account closed.
Exactly.
I'm
curious as well. These are our Twitter handles. You can also find us there or on Nostr, I think. We are also on Nostr, Blue Sky, whatever, everything. No TikTok,
and
that's a bit too far.
We have a large community. Shall we take a selfie with the audience before everyone leaves?
I want to see a happy audience.
A happy audience. Okay. Happy audience.
Okay. Next time, tell me when you have a spontaneous ID. Hey.
Wave.
Click. All right, guys. Thank you, and see you next year.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.